Every year in fall, winter, and spring, my kids take it. It is the academic equivalent of a thermometer, basically. It's a way school districts can take their kids' temperature when it comes to learning, so you can figure out who's doing well, who's struggling, and even see, at least in terms of reading and math, what's tripping them up. Now, most kids did not take the MAP last spring because of the pandemic, obviously, but millions did take it this fall, not that long ago. And it's those results now that give us the first real temperature check we've had for kids mid-pandemic.
And what are the results here?
Yeah, so let's start with reading. Researchers compared kids' skills this fall in, let's say, third grade reading to the performance of a different group of kids who took third grade reading before the pandemic. And what they found really surprised them. So looking at their sample of more than 4 million kids, the pandemic had little effect on reading skill. According to the report, kids on average are performing similarly to how other kids did pre-pandemic. Beth Terasawa is head of research at NWEA, that's the not-for-profit, behind the MAP test. And here she is describing her initial reaction to that.
Wow, this wasn't as bad as we predicted and others had, particularly in reading. All things considered, given the craziness that we are in, there's some optimism.
Now, in math, Rachel, the news wasn't quite as optimistic. The current pandemic class of students performed about 5 to 10 percentile points lower than the pre-pandemic comparison group, but that's still what Terasawa describes as a moderate drop. It's also important to note when comparing kids to their own performance on these tests, they're not literally falling backwards. They're still making gains in reading and math both, just not at the same pace in math that they were before the pandemic.
Huh, interesting. So, yeah, some reason for optimism, but I mean, this is an important thing to talk about here. You have done a lot of reporting on really vulnerable students, Corey, who are still struggling to even just log on each day. I mean, even if they have access to a computer, right? I mean, how could they even take a test like this?
Yeah, this is one of the big questions I had when I first got this report. And the short answer is, we're not sure because many of our most vulnerable kids clearly didn't take this test. Beth Terasawa, again, the head of research at NWEA, told me roughly a quarter of students were missing from their sample. And she said that these children are, in her words, more likely to be black and brown, more likely to be from high poverty schools, and more likely to have lower performance in the first place. And so she told me this fact is screaming that we have to be very cautious about making too much of this good news. And, you know, Rachel, it could be a warning sign of what we already know about this pandemic, that it hurts most those who have the least.
NPR's Corey Turner, thank you.
You're welcome.
With President Trump on his way out of office, populist leaders in Eastern Europe have lost a powerful ally. As NPR's Rob Schmitz reports, the president's election loss threatens to isolate those leaders even more.
On the day after the U.S. election, millions of votes in key swing states were still being counted, and there wasn't a clear winner yet. But that didn't stop Yanis Janša, the Prime Minister of Slovenia, birthplace of First Lady Melania Trump, to take to Twitter to be the first world leader to congratulate President Trump for winning a second term that he hadn't won. After the election was called for Biden, Poland's President Andrzej Duda composed a carefully worded tweet that avoided congratulating him for the win, adding that Poland would wait for the results of the Electoral College. Eastern Europe's populist strongman leaders are having a hard time accepting Trump has lost.
I'm not so sure it's a big loss for the populations. I think it's a big loss for the individual leaders, frankly.
Judy Dempsey, fellow at Carnegie Europe, says the increasingly authoritarian governments of Hungary and Poland will especially miss a U.S. president who seemed to share their worldview.
They loved nothing more than getting invited to the White House. In that sense, they've lost one of their cheerleaders. But frankly, I think the populations might be quite relieved that they have a sane man coming into the White House in January.
Voters in Hungary and Poland elected these populist leaders into office, but many have grown wary of their crackdowns on democracy. So has the European Union. It's launched an investigation into both countries that could result in their loss of voting rights in the bloc.
The Polish government bet on the wrong horse and unfortunately bet everything they had.
Marcin Bacak, law professor at the University of Warsaw, says Poland's Nationalist Law and Justice Party, in power since 2015, bent over backwards to align itself with Trump's anti-immigrant, anti-globalist views. Bacak says the Trump administration largely looked the other way as the ruling party systematically dismantled Poland's judicial system and cracked down on its free press. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands of Poles, spurred by leaders who aim to tighten restrictions on abortion, have braved the pandemic to hold the biggest anti-government demonstration since the fall of communism. Biden says he's committed to rebuilding ties with the EU, and Maciek says that puts Poland's government in danger of being left by the wayside.
They no longer have a friend in the President of the United States, and it will no longer be possible for them to build a strategic partnership with the United States with the politics they have in Poland. So I think it is going to be a huge problem for them.
Maciek says Poland is left with only two potential friends in the region: the UK, whose Prime Minister Boris Johnson has jettisoned his country from the EU, and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who has consolidated power in himself and his nationalist party.
But Orban is going to be just fine among his supporters, even if it's not Trump in the American presidency.
That's because, says Zuzana Veg of the European Council on Foreign Relations, unlike Poland's leadership, Orban has been in power for a decade, well before the rise of Trump. In that time, Veg says Orban has completely reshaped Hungary's political system by changing the constitution, tampering with the electoral code, and removing counterweights to executive power. Veg says Hungary's opposition will look to Biden for moral support.
Or whether it just remains like a distant reference point to the opposition that, okay, we can look at the US and see that change is possible.
Carnegie Europe's Judy Dempsey says Biden will be too busy with the pandemic and domestic affairs when he takes office to do much about autocrats in Europe. That should be left to the EU, she says. And for those in these countries fighting for democracy, she says, what matters most is not who's coming into the White House, but who's leaving it. Rob Schmitz, NPR News, Berlin.
This is NPR News.
And you're listening to Morning Edition on 91.5 WBEZ, Chicago's NPR news station. Just ahead, NPR's Noel King speaks with author Michael Eric Dyson about his new book on reckoning with race in America. The new book is called Long Time Coming. Right now, we are reminding you on this Giving Tuesday just how important you, the listener, is to everything we do here at WBEZ. We're in the midst of our winter pledge drive. We're asking you right now to support public media, to support WBEZ with your contribution at 888-915-9239 or online at wbez.org/donate. I'm here with Aaron Cahoe. Aaron, we have had a really eventful and important morning.
That's right. You know, Steve, in this year, I will grab any good feels wherever I can get them. And there are a lot of good feels here at WBEZ today because we have asked listeners to step up and help us meet a challenge. Actually, we need 500 people to unlock $25,000 that is on the line, thanks to the generosity of Joan from Edison. And so far, the number just ticked up. We are at 190 people. We are well on our way to meeting this challenge. But, 191. It is ticking up as we speak. This challenge ends at 11 a.m. today, so your gift right now is essential. And the special thing about this challenge is there's no set dollar amount attached to it. Whatever you can give is needed. Any gift you make right now will help us meet that 500 member goal. So make your gift right now. 192, Steve. It keeps going up. Make that gift right now. Make your gift at wbez.org/donate.
You probably just got an email from us as well saying, reminding you of what we're doing here on Giving Tuesday. And, you know, I think just the numbers you cited there, 192, you know, this Giving Tuesday challenge is testament to what can be accomplished when we all band together when each of us does our part. That's one of the things I love about this model of support for WBEZ and for public media. Each of us does our piece. That's really what community and civic participation is about. We each do our piece to create a greater whole. And you can do that right now and unlock this $25,000 challenge from Joan in Evanston by calling 888-915-9239 or going to wbez.org/donate.
Once again, that website, wbez.org/donate. The phone number, 888-915-9239. And your one gift does a lot of heavy lifting here at WBEZ. WBEZ, not only are you supporting the local news that keeps you informed, that keeps us up to date on what's happening in City Hall and in Springfield, your gift also goes to the national news that you get from NPR, these wonderful updates that you hear every day on Morning Edition and All Things Considered, and also the international news that you get from the BBC. Your one gift does all of that. And also the digital news you find at WBEZ.org, the rundown, that daily email that keeps you up to date, that gives you those news bullets that you need, and the wonderful podcast slate that we have here at WBEZ. Your one gift does all of that. And today, right now, it also helps us in that 500 people challenge. We've heard from 195. The next gift we need is yours. Make that gift right now at WBEZ.org/donate.
We've been talking about gift levels today. You can choose a gift level that's comfortable for you. Lots of thank you gifts. Any pledge at any amount entitles you to membership and makes you a part of what we do from a membership standpoint. I want to suggest a higher pledge level of $30 a month. When you think about it, we spend much more than that on utilities and streaming subscriptions and bundles and all of that stuff. But for $30 a month, you can get a fleece jacket, a WBEZ fleece jacket. As we think about this time of year, it's a perfect way to support WBEZ, to show your support in WBEZ and get something useful that you can wear frequently throughout this season. 888-915-9239 or WBEZ.org/donate.
Speaking of monthly amounts that may appear on your bill, Elizabeth Timken from Ann Arbor, they gave today and said, if I can afford $10 a month for Spotify and Netflix, I can pitch in to support my favorite radio station too. I know that there's a monthly bill on your credit card that goes to something that you enjoy, but think about the necessity of public radio, this news that keeps you informed. You can make a monthly gift right now and support that with your gift and help us meet this 500 member challenge at WBEZ.org/donate.
Get in on this right now. The way to do that, once again, our website, where you can check out all the thank you gifts and get in on this special challenge is WBEZ.org/donate. The number 888-915-9239. And thank you so much for your support.
WBEZ is supported by Delta Dental of Illinois, dedicated to improving oral health and providing dental coverage to individuals, families, and businesses with the goal of protecting smiles and keeping teeth healthy. Learn more at deltadentalil.com.
WBEZ is supported by Chase, working to help Chicagoans buy homes with their home buyer grant program. Learn more at a local Chase branch or at chase.com/Chicago. JP Morgan Chase Bank NA is an equal housing lender.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Total Wine and More, where in-store teams can recommend a bottle of wine, spirit, or beer for the holidays. Shoppers can explore more than 8,000 wines, 2,500 beers, and 3,000 spirits.